I'm Ellen, 38. Single mom, librarian, gardener, expert at pretending everything is fine. For the past 20 years, my world has revolved around one person, Lily, my daughter. She's bright, stubborn, fiercely independent, okay? And has her father's smile. I raised her alone in our quiet little house, holding it together with routines and leftover strength. Then came Jake. He's 24, works in construction, broad-shouldered, quiet kind. The kind of man who holds doors open without needing to be thanked. Lily met him at the coffee shop she works at. Came home that day, giggling, cheeks flushed, waving a napkin with his number scribbled on it. He started showing up for dinner. He always brought flowers for Lily, but his eyes, they'd linger, just for a second too long on me. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was just politeness. I'm not the kind of woman who invites trouble. I have stretch marks, bills, and laugh lines. Not secrets, not scandals. But Jake kept coming back. Helping with dishes, asking about my life, looking through old photos. Albums with a quiet curiosity that felt too personal. And I started to look forward to those nights when Lily worked late. When it was just us, I should have stopped it the first time. 2 nights before the kitchen, Jake kissed me. Just leaned in, soft, tentative, like he'd been thinking about it for weeks. I pulled back, said Jake, no. But my voice cracked, and he saw it. He saw the shake in my hand. It's the way I didn't yell. It's the way I didn't really say. No, I didn't tell Lily, didn't ask him to leave. And in that silence, something changed. That night in the kitchen wasn't planned. Lily was at a friend's. Jake came by to grab his jacket. I could have kept my distance, but I didn't. He stood too close. His arm brushed mine, and when he kissed me again, I let him. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't perfect. It was clumsy, breathless, reeled off the edge of the counter, bit into my hips. His breath was ragged against my neck. His hands trembled where they held me, as though even he couldn't believe this was happening. And when it finally did, when the moment broke, open, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Alive. Not beautiful. Not young. Just seen. After. We didn't speak much. He rested his forehead to mine, both of us breathless. But the guilt was already crawling up my spine like ice water. I haven't told Lily. I can barely look at her. I keep asking myself who I've become. Was it loneliness? Desire? It's the weight of years spent invisible. Maybe it doesn't matter, because I let him in. And there's no going back now. I used to think loneliness was just part of aging, part of motherhood. That aching silence in the evenings. The untouched side of the bed, the slow disappearance of attention. I wasn't unhappy, just ... Reason ... And then Jake started seeing me, not as Lily's mom, not as someone past her prime, just as a woman. What do you do when someone reminds you you're still here? What would you have done? Good for Lily. But I started looking forward to his visits, to the way he'd lean against the counter, talking about this day while I chopped vegetables for dinner. Lily is a night owl working late shifts, so Jake would sometimes hang around. After she left, he'd offer to fix a leaky faucet or carry groceries in small things that felt like a lifeline. One night he stayed to watch a movie. Some action flick Lily would have hated. We sat on the couch a careful foot apart, but I could feel the heat of him, the way his arm rested close to mine. When he laughed, his eyes crinkled and I caught myself staring. "You're easy talk too, Ellen," he said, and my chest tightened. I didn't trust my voice tones wire. It wasn't just his attention. 'Twas the way he listened. When I talked about my day, the way he noticed the news scarf I wore, the way his hand brushed mine when he passed me a dish. Each touch was a spark, accidental at first, then not. I'd catch him looking at Melwan. I was stirring soup or folding laundry, and his gaze wasn't polite anymore. It was hungry, and it scared me as much as it thrilled me. I'd lie awake at night telling myself I was imagining it, that I was pathetic for even thinking about it. He was Lily's. He was too young. The truth was, I hadn't felt desired in so long. And Jake's, I swear, like a mirror, showing me a woman I'd forgotten I could be. One evening, he helped me plant tulip bulbs in Thebacard. Lily was at work and the air was cool, the kind that makes your breath visible. We knelt in the dirt shoulder to shoulder, and when our hands touched, neither of us pulled away. His fingers lingered rough against me skin, and I felt my pulse in my throat.
You're good at.
This, he said, his voice low, and I knew he wasn't talking about gardening. I looked at them, his face close, his eyes searching mine, and I wanted to lean in. I didn't. I stood, brushed the dirt off my jeans, and said we should head inside. But my voice shook and he heard it. That night I saw it clearly. I was lonely, and Jack was filling a space I hadn't admitted was empty. I loved Lily more than anything. But I was starving for something she couldn't give me. And Jake. He was right there offering it without words. I told myself I'd be stronger, that I'd keep my distance. Butte every time he walked through my door. That resolve crumbled a little more. The days started blurring, each one heavier with what wasn't said. Jake was at the house more often, even when Lily wasn't there. Show up with an excuse or tool. Lily borrowed a question about her siege wall, but his eyes always found mine holding longer than they should. I'd catch myself fixing my hair before he came over, choosing a shirt that hugged me curves. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall would hurt, but wanting to lean forward me. We started finding reasons to be alone. He'd offered to help with chores, replacing a light bulb, moving boxes in the garage, and I'd let him, even when I'd need the help. In the garage one afternoon, we were sorting through old camping gear, the air thick with dust and the scent of his sweat. Our arms brushed as we reached for the same box, and I froze, feeling the warmth of his skin. He didn't move either. Sorry, he muttered, but his voice was rough, and didn't step back. I should have laughed it off, changed the subject instead. I looked at him, and his eyes were dark, searching like he was waiting for me to decide something. My breath caught, and I turned away, my hand shaking as I grabbed another box. But air felt charged like a storm about to break. He started sharing things with him. Small secrets, vulnerabilities, one night over coffee at the Kitchenabelle. He told me about his dad, how the guy walked out when he was 10, leaving him to help raise his younger brother. I don't talk about this with Lily Hest, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug. She doesn't get it. I nodded my chest tight because I understood too well, carrying a family alone being the strong one. I told him about my ex how left when Lily was 3, how I learned to fix pipes and pay bills back as I had no choice. Jake listened, really listened. His eyes soft, butte and tense, and I felt seen in a way that made my skin prickle. The glances grew bolder. I'd be washing dishes and I'd feel his gaze heavy like a touch. One Che passed me in the hallway, his holder grazing mine and his handling erred on my arm just for a second. "You okay, Alan?" he asked, his voice low, and I nodded, my throat dry because I wasn't okay. It was unraveling. Every moment we spent together was a step closer to something I couldn't take back. And I knew it, but I kept letting him in, kept letting him closer. The almost moment came on a Tuesday night. Lily was working late and Jake was over supposedly to wait. For her, we were on the couch, a movie playing, but neither of us was watching. He shifted closer, his knee brushing mine, and I didn't move away. The room felt too small, fear too warm. He turned to me, his face inches from mine, and I could smell his breath, coffee and mint, and see thistable on his jaw. "Alan," he said, his voice barely a whisper, and my name sounded like a question, a plea. My heart pounded, and I felt the weight of his nearness, the pull of it. His hand moved to my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin, and I leaned into it just for a second before I pulled back my breath. "We can't," I said. But it sounded weak, like I was trying to convince myself. He nodded, but high sighs didn't leave mine. And when he left that night, the space between us felt live, dangerous, inevitable. I lay awake after my body humming, my mind screaming. I was Lily's mother. I was supposed to protect her, not betray her. But Jake was under my skin, and I didn't know how to get him out. The breaking point came on a Thursday, the kind off humid night where the air clings to your skin. Lily was at a concert with Friendsnet, due back till midnight. Jake texted him, asking if he could drop off a hoodie. Lily laughed at his place. I should have said no. Told him to come by tomorrow instead. I typed, "Sure," my hands trembling as I hit send. When he showed up, the hoodie was slung over his shoulder. But his eyes were on mine tense, like he'd come for something else entirely. We stood in the kitchen, the hoodie forgotten on the counter. He was close, too close, his body radiating heat. "Ellen," he said, his voice low, rough. "I can't stop thinking about you." My breath hitched, and I wanted to tell him to leave, to stop, but the words wouldn't come. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm, and I felt that tremor in his fingers. The same need I was fighting. "Say you don't want this," he said, his eyes searching mine. "And deal, go." But I couldn't say it. The truth was burning in me, shameful and undeniable. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was me leaning into him or him. Closing the gap. His lips found mine, urgent tasting of salt and want. His hands slid to my waist, pulling me against him, and he felt the hard planes of his body, festering in his grip. My back hit that counter, the edge sharp against my hips, and his breath was hot on my neck, ragged like he was unraveling. He lifted my thighs, parting as I wrapped my legs around him, and I felt him thicken, straining, pressing against me. I wasn't easy at first. His size, my tension, the clumsy desperation of it. He hesitated, his forehead creasing, and he saw the question in his eyes. "Try again," I whispered, my voice breaking, and I shifted, guiding him, my hands gripping his shoulders. When he finally pushed in the pressure, stole my breath, a slow, overwhelming fullness that made me thighs shake. His rhythm was uneven, careful at first, then deeper, driven by something neither of us could stop. My fingers dug into his back, feeling the flex of muscle, the sweat on his skin. His mouth was on my throat, his breath stuttering, and I let myself go. Let the world shrink to the heat of him through it. The raw human need of it. It wasn't graceful or perfect. It was mazzy. Our breaths out of sync. My hip bumping the counter, his hands fumlingas. He tried to hold me closer, but it was real. Every sensation sharp and alive. The scrape of his stubble, the warmth of his palms. The way his body shuddered when I tightened around him. When it was over, he didn't pull away. His forehead pressed to mine, our breaths mingling. And for a moment I felt whole, like a woman again. Not just a mom or a shadow. But then reality crashed in, cold and brutal. I slid off the counter, my legs unsteady, and he looked at me, his eyes wide, like he was seeing the weight of it too. "Sorry," he said, his voice. But I shook me head because I wasn't sorry, not yet. I was terrified, guilty, alive, Westholden Tav. I said, but it sounded hollow because I'd wanted it, and so had I. He reached for me, his hand brushing me cheek. But I stepped back, my heart pounding. "You need to go," I said, and nodded, grabbing the hoodie, his holders tense. When the door closed behind him, I sank to the floor, my hands covering my face, the scent of him stall on my skin. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. And the worst part was I didn't know if I regretted it. The guilt came like a tide, slow at first, then drowning. I stood in Thesaur that night, scrubbing my skin until it stung. But I couldn't wash away the memory of Jake's hands, his breath, way my body had responded. I kept seeing Lily's face, her trusting smile, the way she'd curl up next to Jake on the couch, and my stomach twisted. I'd betrayed her, my own daughter, for a moment of feeling wanted. But even as I hated myself, I couldn't stop that craving. The way my skin hummed at the thought of him, it was like I'd woken up after years of sleep, and now I couldn't go back. The next morning, Lily was in the kitchen pouring cereal, chatting about her concert. I knotted my throat tight, afraid she'd see it on me, that truth written in my eyes, or the way my hand shook when I poured coffee. "Yow okay, Mom?" she asked, tilting her head, and I forced a smile, muttering something about a bad night's sleep. When Jake came over that afternoon, I braced myself, expecting awkwardness, but he was the same as always. Easy with Lily, polite with me, too polite. High size barely met mine, and when they did, there was a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, or fear. It stung how easily he slipped back into his role while I was sunraveling. We didn't talk about it. No tat first, but he kept coming by, and the tension was there. A current under every glance, every accidental touch. Unavenging Lily was in her room, and Jack was helping me carry laundry upstairs on the hallway. His arm brushed mine, and I felt it again. That spark, sharp and dangerous. He paused, his jaw tightened, whispered, "I can't stop thinking about it." My heart lurched, and I wanted to tell him to shut up, to leave, but my body leaned toward him. "Traitor that it was, don't," I said. My voice low, not here, but my eyes betrayed me, and he saw if want the weakness that happened to Gina. Week later, in the garage, Lily was at work, and Jake came to fix a shelf I'd mentioned. We were alone, the air thick with the smell of sawdust, and his sweat was hammering nail-sheath shirt, clinging to his back, and I watched my pulse loud in my ears. When turned, catching me staring, Thay Hummer dropped to the floor. We did it speak. He crossed the room, his hands finding my waist, and I let him kiss me, let his body press me against the oar-kench. It was quicker this time, more desperate. Breaths harsh, my fingers clutching his hair. When it was over, we stood there panting, and the shame hit me like a slap. "This has toast top," I said, my voice breaking. He nodded, but his eyes were dark, conflicted, and I knew he felt it too. The pull, the impossibility of letting go. The close call came a few days later. Lily came home early, her shift canceled, while Jake and I were in the living room, too close, our voices low. She walked in, and I jerked back, my heart in my throat. "Hey, you two," she said, oblivious, dropping her bag. Jake lowed too loud, and I busied myself with dishes, my hands trembling. That night I lay awake, picturing her face if she knew, imagining her tears, her hate. I wanted to end it, to tell Jake we were done. But the thought of losing that feeling of being seen, desired, tore a tam. I was trapped, caught between guilt and need, and every day felt like a countdown to disaster. By the end of the week, I was a mess, jumping at every sound, avoiding Jake's gaze. He tried to talk to me once, when Lily was in the sewer, his voice low. "Ellen, we need to figure this out." But I shook my head, my eyes burning. "We can't keep doing this," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Someone's going to find out." And as I said it, I knew it was true. The truth was too heavy, too close to the surface. It was only a matter of time. The truth came out, but not the way I'd feared. It wasn't Lily Kachingas in a stolen moment or finding a stray text. It was worse, quieter. And it broke him in ways I didn't expect. 2 weeks after that night in the garage, Jake started pulling away. Still Lily's boyfriend. Boots sewn thing had shifted. Smiles wear tighter, his glances fleeting. When we were alone, he'd keep his distance. Hishons in his pockets, his voice clipped. "We're good, right?" he'd say, but high size wouldn't meet mine, and I felt thespis between us growing cold and final. I should have been relieved. Every rational part of me knew this was the only way, stopping before Lily found out, before we destroyed everything. But rejection stung sharp and personal. I'd risked so much, crossed lines he couldn't uncross. And now he was acting like I was nothing, like those moments shouldn't happen. At night, I'd replay them, his hands on my skin, his breath in my ear, and the shame mixed with longing leaving me restless roar. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but I was too afraid of what to hear. Then came the night that changed everything. Lily was at work, and Jake showed up unannounced, his jaw tight, his eyes shadowed. I was in the kitchen chopping onions, the knife unsteady in my hands. He stood in theater way, silent until I looked up. "One need to talk, Alan," he said, his voice low, strained. My stomach dropped, but I nodded, setting the knife down, my hands trembling. He stepped closer, not close enough to touch, but enough that I felt his presence heavy like a storm cloud. "I can't do this anymore," he said, and thwards hit like a punch. "I thought I could, but it's tearing me apart." His voice cracked, and I saw it then, the guilt in his eyes, the weight he'd been carrying. "I love Lily," he said. And my chest tightened because I knew it was true. Had always known it, but I feel some needing for you too. And it's messing with my head. I don't know how to live with this. I wanted to scream to tell him he didn't get to say that. Not after pulling away, not after making me feel like a mistake, but my throat was tight, and all I could manage was, "Then why did you start this?" My voice was sharp, accusing, and he flinched, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Hest." His voice breaking. "You weareth her. You saw me, Ellen, in a way shed a scent. But this isn't right. It's not fair to her or you." He looked at me, high-sized roar, and I realized he wasn't just standing it. He was trying to protect me, to protect Lily, even if it hurt. "I'm going to tell her I need a break. Hesed quieter now. Not about us, just in its space to figure myself out." I stood there, my heart pounding the air, thick with everything we weren't saying. "And what about me?" ask. My voice Borrelia whisper. He didn't answer, just looked at me, his eyes full of regret. And then her turned, walking out the door. I sank toe. The floor, the onion sting burning my eyes. But the tears weren't from that. I'd lost something I shouldn't have wanted, and the cost was still coming. Lily came home the next day, quieter than usual. "Jake's acting weird," she said, stirring her coffee. Her brow furrowed. "He says honey's time to think." My heart lurched, but I nodded, murmuring something about, "Don't guys in commitment?" She didn't suspect anything. Not yet, but I saw they hurt in her eyes, and it was a knife in me chest. I'd done this, maybe not directly, but my choices had rippled, and now she was paying for it. Jake stopped coming by. Lily spent more time at work or with friends avoiding the house. I was alone again, the silence louder than ever. I'd lie awake or playing every moment, hating myself for the thrill that still lingered under guilt. I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But for one night, one reckless, shameful night, I'd felt like a woman again, alive, desired. And that, Ruth, as much as it haunted me, was a thing I couldn't let go. Thanks for listening. See you in next one. Bye.